Good evening, everyone, and welcome. These are the Galactic Goddess Roundtables on the 13th of every month. And today's date is the 13th of February, 2026, and it is 7:28 p.m. here in Ireland. And I'm joined this evening by Karen Ann MacDonald, or Clan Mother, who is in Canada, I believe. Oh no, you've frozen again. Goodness. Are you there, Karen? Well, we are having some trouble with Zoom. I've been having trouble with the Zoom lately. Um, there we are, Karen. So yes, I'm sorry. I've been having trouble with the Zoom lately. Um, I know. Um,
I thought my time travel story was great this week, but
yes. Do you want to start with that? Share that again, or maybe introduce yourself as well.
so I'm that Tartarian, whatever. White, we call ourselves White Bear Clan. Anyway, so I have a AB positive lymphoma, the original Terrarian things that they put down here to experiment with. Anyway, I am in the Sinaiac territory. People know it as British Columbia. Those people in the American audiences, I'm 6 hours, as I told Carrie Cassidy a couple of days ago on her show that we just did. I'm 6 hours north of Spokane, Washington. For you, I'm across the pond. So
Yes.
it's 11:30 in the morning here. While you guys are having your supper, I'm having my lunch here. So anyway, um, I'm a holistic therapist. I've got a neonatal background, but I've been in medicine for 42 years. So I'm kind of into the high tech stuff. So I do all sorts of things like Rife and radionics. I look at the biofield that Sabrina Wallace talks about. So that's just an extension of our peripheral and our central nervous systems. And so we have a whole set of, information out here that we need to drive from. And the only way you can see it properly is to do actually ultrasound. So
Mm.
this biofeedback I use is by Ryan Williams is another form of it. But in your terms, I do live blood, I do dark field blood, I do herbs, I do oils, I do antidotes and remedies, for different weird things like chemtrails and all sorts of weird stuff. And colon hydrotherapist, massage, reflexology, face reading, psychic stuff, that kind of thing. Touchy feely stuff. I was a Reiki master. I did quantum touch and body talk. And then my favorite is matrix energetics. I loved Richard Bartlett. I love changing things. I firewalk. You can make your reality. And I was just talking earlier before we got on the air that I had a little incident with a senior. I take one of my friends that's a senior out to the hot springs every month. And we're between two towns, in here. And so basically, it's at least a 45-minute trip, depending on weather conditions in here. And I'll talk a little bit about the snow that we don't have. And like, if it's all clear here, but we've got chemical piles here, I'll talk about that you can't burn either, off gassing on us. But anyway, so we went up there and it's a 45-minute trip. I dropped him off, went to go get my like winter tires on, which I really haven't needed. That's okay. And you never know what's going to happen, right? And so all of a sudden they looked at me, they go, "Why are you here? We sent everyone for lunch." I said, "Why would you send him for lunch when my truck's got to be on the hoist?" And he goes, "Well, it's only 12:30." And I went, "No, my appointment's for 1." And I knew I left here, just left close to 12:30. And it's impossible. Well, it
Yes.
is possible, as we know, with Mandela being taken, abducted. I don't care what it is. Timeline shifts, call it whatever you want. So I got back and I said to Trevor, I went, "How was your lunch? Anything weird?" And he goes, "You too?" And I'm like this little guy in his 70s, right? He said, "Well," I said, "What's your story?" And he said, "Well, I went to the counter, I ordered my breakfast burger thing, and it was ready. I sat down, I'm eating it, look around, look at the clock, and realize it's 12:30, and we hadn't technically almost left." And he goes, I knew something had happened. So we were feeling a little bit like discombobulated. And as I put my story up a week later, I see that the same thing happened to a friend of mine because I'm a basis conference speaker as well. When we get, Zoomed in or Skyped into Wiltshire to England with Miles Johnston, right? And so I've been a basis conference speaker for 15 years. Anyway, 47 if you need the number, 54.
When did Miles actually start? Because
Oh, I don't know how old, in there. I'm in the 40s, so he's already into like 100 and some. So mine and Max Spears are really close together. So I think I was about 2015, 2016 in there when I started speaking. And then one of the other conferences, like, the expo and the alien thing and the biomedical conference, like 5D and 5D conferences, I started, I think, in 2011, something like that. And then Revolution Radio. So, I mean, those early years I was out there. Project Ascension was 2016. So it'd be around there, somewhere in that frame. But anyway, I kind of looked, and Miles had just finished his conference, and they went down a couple of days later to meet with Bob Osborne and James Casbolt, one of the super soldiers that, is just getting back out. And they were on their way down there, and they were taken as well, the whole car, three of them at least. And they ended up on a different highway going in the wrong direction. At least we stayed close to the hot springs. So I was a little happy about that. I would have been ticked off if I ended somewhere else, but you never know what's going to happen, right? And so this is not the first time this has happened. It happened in my clinics in Saskatoon. I had an incident last year after I looked after one of the tribal elders out here. And I literally went, "Where's my mothership?" And it took me apparently an hour to walk 6 houses. So I don't know what happened. Maybe I need to call them in more. But that, like, it can be really life-changing, and it's kind of ironic. About a week later, I'm at the same hot springs, and someone I was talking to very, very closely, right? I usually keep back from people, and someone neglected to tell me that they were intercoursing with people that were, injected, which of course, ejaculation, ejection doesn't matter. Anything goes through the needle, goes through the breast milk, the saliva, and the whatever. And as a nurse, we call it, body blood fluids. It's like an STD. So we should know better after 6 years. Anyway, I find a lot of people will reserve themselves because they want to actually get help. And I don't mind helping people from a distance, but not in my proximity. And so I actually got too close, and I literally, as I was telling you, I'm nursing a fracture because I went unconscious. A lot of times I will bleed. People get headaches. They just feel kind of dizzy. They can't explain it. Their blood pressure goes up. They just feel heated. You'll see skin conditions come up. But this time, I did that once after I went as a dental thing as well. But this is amazing. So you've got to be able to protect yourself. So I actually went unconscious twice, broke my wrist, my arm here, hit my tailbone, hit the back of my head, vomited. They called an ambulance. I said, "Don't come because I have more medical equipment and you're all jacked up. I'm not going to let you within 10 feet of me. So just don't even bother coming. I'll figure this out." So I came back, and, I do all this stuff because any incident like this will get you very acidic. And so the first thing I did was I grabbed every litmus paper and I tested all the urine for everything I could. And I'm like, okay, that's, get alkaline, and then get the essential oils, the spruce, the fir, the frankincense, cedar wood to get up into the brain, the pine for the thing. And then I literally just dose straight up, and I've been doing DSMO and everything else 2-3 times a day. I've been doing my biofeedback, all the acupuncture meridians here. So I've been doing sound therapy, with the frequencies, the rife. I've got a little Tesla kind of thing, a high frequency one, kind of like not quite the violet ray, but similar. So I've been
so
doing
you've been doing quite a lot
yeah,
to get
yeah.
better.
Oh, absolutely. And I was showing you too. I went to go to my girlfriend's clinic, right? Because we both do. I've been doing dark field through biofeedback, but I was just telling people, if you haven't seen this, oops, where did we lose all the light here? Okay. Anyway, this is actually live blood. So that's actually my blood here. And so what I did is we went under the microscope. So we both do that. So we wanted to make sure, because I want to make sure I'm not spiked. So I'm happy to report that. And then we did 8 different ones. So we did live and dark field. And there's no graphene. There's no strange ribbons. There's no computers assembling inside me. So part of that too, it's having a really intact immune system. So when you look at my aura, for the most part, a lot of times it's hot pink and hot purple. So hopefully everything will burn up on reentry, kind of the idea, when it is functioning. We should be able to transmute stuff, but the problem is people don't have an intact immune system to start with. So, but when that
And
happened, I just doubled up on everything for, a week, just in case.
so, can you explain? I'm really sorry that that happened.
Thanks.
Um, but it's um, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but at least it happened to you because you've got all
Yeah.
like you've got everything. You've got everything at your hand, at your
Mhm.
fingertips to kind of deal with it. Um,
Well, yes. And I'm the guinea pig. I am I am the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. So I've had a lot of strange things happen, right? But as a rule, like I said, thank gosh I had it. So yeah, I mean, I had to monitor. I mean, I'm still a nurse. So, I mean, I monitored the saturation. I monitored the heart rate because my heart rate was elevated for about 5 minutes there. They were really concerned, right? And I started drilling. So almost like, similar to a seizure, So again, it doesn't matter how intact. That's a shock event to me. I went into basically anaphylactic shock.
yes.
And I'm also, like I said, one of those women, and you can see it's called, not if you're looking how bad is my batch, but there's my cycle story, which Dr. James Thorpe set up, because all these women, whether they were 8 years old or 88 years old, started bleeding. And the women in between were bleeding. Some of my clients have been bleeding for a year when they come to me, and they're bleeding like 6 to 8 pads a day. So this is not unusual. It's going out there. They're asymptomatic. It changes the whole cycle because with women, that is our detox. That's our cleansing period. And it totally discombobulates everyone. So yeah, I mean, I'm being the canary in the coal mine. A few people have said that to me, but I have know when I need to go to the dentist, I take neodymium magnets, right? I put those magnets and I put my vials, dental freezing and lidocaine and all those, anesthetic stuff on this with, different magnets. And so when we clean it up, just like LaQuinta Colombo talks about, you can heat it up and then you can put your needle in and then you can draw because you'll hopefully pull all the heavy, metals and everything that's untowards in the solution, including the graphene, will be pulled off to the side. So, but, like I said, I've had a few near misses like that. But the thing is, it really is important that you need to keep your immune system up. And, it's what you eat, what you think, what you drink, how you feel. You got to go out and keep yourself happy as you can. That's half of it. I drum, I sing, I chant, I do whatever.
And Karen, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about DMSO.
Yes.
Um, Please, what is that? Can you explain more? I only
I
heard about it
love it.
actually today when I was watching Mark Atwood, and he was doing
Yeah.
an interview with someone who's in America
Yeah.
who has created a company called Yummy Doctor, I think. And
That's Amanda. That's Amanda. I have her books.
yes, yeah,
Okay, so Doctor, I can talk to that. There are
thanks.
many different books on Amazon. Hers isn't the only one, but it is one of the better ones. I have it. I've had it for a long time. So Dr. Amanda Vollmer is called the Yummy Doctor. And so you can look her up. She's on Facebook. She's one of my Facebook friends, actually. And I think she's got a Substack as well. But anyway, so in there, if you look at her stuff, DSMO is basically a sulfur. Anything, just people, it's a kind of a driver. It's kind of like what peppermint does. But a lot of people with DSMO, when you've got joint pain, arthritis, that kind of thing, bone stuff, I can put it, and I prefer to work it with essential oils and then use DSMO. It's not going to hurt. But a lot of people are really deficient in sulfur. And sometimes that little bit of topical DSMO can help. What we've used a lot of it for, too, is also for people with macular degeneration and eye conditions. And so you can actually dilute it, like 20% DSMO. It's a clear liquid. And I could actually, if you want, I could actually screen share it. But I go over to the kitchen. I just actually have it there. Don't put it in the fridge because it actually came to me from Amazon because it was a little cold up here and it came, my stuff was all like congealed. So I had to like thaw it out a bit. So it's a clear liquid. And the DSMO itself, like I said, you can mix it with, saline or sterile water or stuff like that. And a lot of people with the DSMO can do a whole bunch of stuff. It can be for scars, gouts, fibro. A lot of people with fibromyalgia, headaches, trigeminal nerve scarring, restless leg syndrome. There's a lot of different things people use it for. They've used it a lot in the actual industry for like horses and animals. So a lot of stuff in the horse racing industry, camel jockeys, stuff like that, they've been using it for a long time. And also what I do is I mix it. Sometimes you can get it with usually about a 70-30 or so, also with aloe vera gel. So a lot of people, and I have that in the fridge too. I made up my own. So it's just a really nice kind of thing that you can, look at here. And there are a lot of books, like I said, out there for sure on Amazon. I have a couple. So it's
Would,
worth
would
doing.
you would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, actually, I certainly will. Just give me a little boo here,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm going to send you a request. So I'll send you the request.
Allow. Yes.
And perfect. Now we can do that. And so here, if you haven't seen this, this is amazing. Just DSMO, right? So it's basically a dimethyl. It's a sulfide oxide. That's what it is. So there's your chemical thing. But, as you can see, there's the gel that I talked about. And, you can get pure ones even on Amazon. You know what I mean? A lot of people want to do it because they want to, sell their stuff or their products, which she does. She's got a store and she does do talks once in a while. Most of them, though, are for her paid members on that. So, on here, but Amanda Bulmer is who you're talking about. And they call her the Yummy Mummy. And there's her book. So that's who that is. So, like I said, there's a lot of stuff in there. So she's been around for quite a thing. She's, one of the things we can say got up there in Canada. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we've been looking at. And like a lot of people, DSMO, another one to mix with that is actually pearl powder. So a lot of people, if you put eyes or put DSMO or something like that, you'll see some of the products that they're doing. So that's where they get into sinusitis and tinnitus, tooth stuff. I actually use DSMO sometimes in my, because I've had periodontal and a lot of dental surgery and stuff. And so that's one of the things as well, is I've put it in my toothpaste with actually pearl powder. And
And
then
I've heard it's good for eyes.
yeah, this is what I'm talking about with the macular degeneration and the cataracts. So it's usually about a 20-80 split on there. So you're putting it in isotonic. So there are some companies that do already make it out there, or they'll put the DSMO with the saline. You can make up your own. There's a 3%. Even Amazon's have it right now. And then like a lot of times too, like I said, you can do some internally and some, times, depending if you've had cataracts, it's not for a long-term solution. So a lot of people also put it in around their eyes. So if you're scared about putting it in the eyes, you can put it around the eye and let it soak in. I've also put castor oil with pearl powder. And actually, I will do actually that for a bit of a facial once in a while. So those are some different things. And again, there are eye drops, like I said, dental, we've used it a lot. And they use it a lot for, like I said, in the horse industry, in the veterinary people have been using it forever.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of make it a comeback. Like I said, they can cut it with other things. You could put in frankincense and you could put in peppermint. That's what I just did with my arm this morning. So those are some different things. So there's your DSMO thing. So,
Thanks,
it's been
Karen.
around quite a bit. And like, I put a lot of these like onto my biofeedback here. So I have DSMO on my Genius biofeedback. So I actually can go in here and actually look for, do I need that, DSMO? Does my client need it? It will actually tell me. So just by using like, I'll just show you here that like the Genius biofeedback, I have libraries that my DSMO is definitely in there because, I want to see if the client needs it or not. And maybe there's something better that the client needs than DSMO. Sometimes, like I said, because there's a sulfur as you get in there, people are sulfur deficient. That's why MSM, which is a great little powder, I use a lot. People just, I put that in my smoothies like quite often. I'll put, some, I have it like a baking soda, MSM, bioxy little borax thing that I will do a couple times a week. Just it's like a whole bunch of white powders. and then put some lemon juice and then add some maple syrup water and like away we go. So I actually like doing some of that. But what I was going to show you too is that like on the biofeedback that we do um, with all that is that a lot of people actually, I'll just show you here too, it's in the biofeedback. So a lot of us use it, to test because I don't necessarily need it all the time. I mean, I know what it is, but here's one of the ones that we're looking at right now with the biofeedbacks going in here. So one of those categories is sulfur or what minerals you need, what vitamins you need, things like that. So we use the voice and get the picture, and then within seconds, it will tell me if you're too high or too low. There's a whole mineral category, vitamin, neurotransmitters, because a lot of people are feeling, anxiety, depression, brain fog right now. But it will tell us, like muscle testing, what is your best essential oil or herb. If you've got a tapeworm, then we'll go into our rife part of it, and then we'll start zapping you with sounds. And if we need to, if you're okay and haven't taken any graphene or injections and stuff like that, or you're not pregnant, then I can actually hook that device up with not only using headphones, so we can run a sound current through you. We can also then run also a magnetic current through you because we have lots of accessories, or we have plates and stuff like that. So we can literally jack you up with all sorts of like things if we want. So, but that's the advantage is we can go with sound. We can do magnetics. I can do light therapy with this. And then I've got a separate rife in there as well. So I've got the advantage of using that. So that's one of the things, whether you need it or not,
Yeah.
And this is the problem I was talking about is when we were talking about, I talked with Carrie, I said, is that I tried different things like certain patches. And I was given the patches and I had a heart attack that night. My other clients went into congestive heart failure. My other client had a stroke. So these things are not for everyone. And again, if you're really deficient on copper, and there's a lot of copper in some of these, you might not notice it. You might even feel better because you're getting like a nitro patch or a nicotine patch.
Yeah.
But are those the healthiest things to do? No.
No.
So if you put, if I had copper and you put someone, you can put people into respiratory arrest and stuff because you're giving excess materials and especially minerals, right? You start playing with magnesium and potassium and things like that and copper that are grounding, you can put people and put them into respiratory arrest. We used to do that. It's like giving them, morphine or something they don't need or something you could be allergic to it, depending on the methodology, right? So we saw that happen with James Rink. I mean, they gave him 7 different, again, fad supplements and terahertz ones and, stuff like that were all contraindicated because they don't know his history. You don't know who they've slept with, like unless you're an actual viable therapist. I really have a problem with all this stuff that people are going for fad. I just put up on my Facebook group today, just one of the guys, they started adding ivermectin. They started seeing it in Fenban. And they started putting some of this stuff in. And now all of a sudden they're seeing that it's actually dangerous and it's sterilizing people. Right. But I mean, we haven't been on it because we knew it was, what was in it from day one. I know how to read a label. I also know how to go do med checks, right?
And that's the thing. That's the thing with the labels. Like most people don't know what they're reading, whether it's in the pharmaceutical, whether it's in the medical, or whether it's in the food as well.
Oh, I
And
saw
this thing with natural flavors, that could be anything.
blood. That could be adrenochrome. That could be blood.
Yes.
Or semen off, Monsanto. Like I said, I never wanted oral sex with them when I talked to them. I certainly don't want to take their products and then get a secondary vermin. This is what you're getting when you're popping pills from these companies. Like who runs them? I know who runs Pfizer and Merck. Don't you? Like, come on. Like I'm like, what do you think they're doing? They have the same stuff I do. They just do it negatively.
Yes.
That's how they do their plating. That's how they do their towers. They're giving venoms and all this stuff is done through frequency. They don't just give you the physical substance. They've done it by frequency. I look for the frequency stuff. I'm like a spell checker, right? I'm like Norton's antivirus. That's what we do with the biofeedback. We go, do. It's like going through a healthy version instead of an airport scanner and a Leidos that will rip your things back at, the molecular level.
So I know we've spoken a lot about health because, you're a very profound health expert. So I highly recommend that anyone with having any kind of health problems go and visit you. But I do have a couple of questions for you. So,
Yeah.
and maybe we can just go through them and you can say yes or no
Sure.
to them. But
Okay.
so I've only written a few down. I'm trying to think of more. But Elon, yes or no?
Elon Musk. What about him? Starlink? Where do you want to go? Robots? Do you want to go to AI? You want to do Grok? Where are we going?
Well, either are you, so the yes or no would be, are you for him or against him?
I don't think in terms like that. I mean, one, I don't think he is who he is, like who he presents to be or who someone's presenting him to be, his handlers. I can look and see that there's several versions of him. It's certainly not who he was, 15 years ago. He's a front, no different than I think Trump would be. So I'm not really for them because to me, they're not authentic anyway. Am I talking to a clone, a walk in, a face mask, whatever? So on
A
that,
robot.
yeah, these are military, what I call military operations, and they're military industrial complex. So until you've studied kind of like, I really love Jessica Morocco and Peter Berger and the rest of them at ACIO. But until you study on they're probably one of the few things where they've got a whole shadow government and they
Yes.
start listing who these are. Mobius, Umbrella, like Umbrella's who brought you COVID, and then who the monarchy is. The monarchy is a corporation. It's like the crown.
Let's get into that because I've seen
6,000
recently.
years, thousands of years old. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the monarchy as well because
Sure.
but so just before we do that, what do you think of Trump?
Again, another loaded question. It falls into the other same category. Are they here? Are they not? I've seen too many. They've got body doubles. They've got clones. They're at that level. My gosh, people like clonate is in Canada for crap's sakes. They are cloning. I just went to clone in the Okanagan. A woman cloned her cats there for $30,000 each. Like, come on. Like they've been cloning these people forever. You
It's a bit
know,
crazy.
it is, it is gone to the utmost. And like I said, I talked to you earlier a little bit, but up here in BC, we've had one of the massive, biggest high school and shootings that ever happened. And I'll just touch on it quickly. Is that there was a boy that was biologically male, started getting into hormones because we've got the hormones, the maid, everything else, the tranny, the whole fentanyl thing, everything's happening up here. It's insane. This is their test ground zero. And he went into the house. He shot up his mother, shot up his brother biologically, and went to the high school and released, shot up. And there's lots of children dead in the high school. We have some still on life support that had to be airlifted to Vancouver. So when you start putting SSRIs, they like to cover up, oh, it's like celibate. No, it's called Zoloft, people, and then you add, these are, when you transition, you are not transitioning. It's impossible for a male to become a female. You have chemical hormones you can play with, but you're mutilating the original body. You're just a mutilated, surgically screwed up. You need some help, right? And we know from the atrazine, it transgenders people, it transgenders frogs to the point they can start for having fertilization. And now toxoplasmosis, which is in probably every cat and cattle litter and fecal matter. And now we're finding it in the chemtrails. That's one of the top 10 things in chemtrails right now, just the heavy metals. So Trump is responsible, Elon is responsible, or whoever's doing this is all responsible. Carney's responsible, for what they're doing. No one here is in total transparency or authenticity, on here. So that's what I think of that. You know, I'm part of the original First Nations. I'm not Aboriginal, and I'm certainly not Native, and I'm not in a contract band or reserve. I'm a clan mother that sits outside as off grid as it can possibly be. And those monies, even this, Sarah, if you have a nation is defined by the bloodline, the blood type. You have your clans, they become tribes. So you have tribal, and then you move up. When you have enough tribes, it becomes a nation, by the way. And it says very clearly in the law book, I don't care about blacks or Bouvier or any of these common law things or private members, which drive me just nuts because you're going into a military trustee position. That's what you are. You're part of that, right? They think that they're elitisms. When I look at, if you talk about Elon and Trump and Vance and all this is what's being presented to people. even the whole thing, is he there? Is he not there? Is Biden there? He's not there. We've got 21 gun salute. They've driven everyone crazy with these loose mind control, or Sabrina Wallace. It's not even MK Ultra. It has been since 1970s. It's called the Wide Body Area Network. They've been pilfering off our biofield, which is basically used to be called the aura, but it is basically an extension of your peripheral feelers or nervous system that comes through your central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, all that vagal nerve. This is what extends out here. And they've been hijacking that and utilizing it and selling people and our children. And these are the people and the corporations responsible for it. So it doesn't matter if Queen Elizabeth dies and then it was Rainey Brown dies, and they do theirs. They have their own clan mother, so we should be going after them. And I said, Nasera belongs to the First Nations people. It has. And I'm not talking, like I said, the band and the reserves and the fake chiefs that are being instilled by the crown because they are agents and partners for the crown.
And it's also come up recently about Deepak Chopra and
Sure.
the Dalai Lama over the last couple of years. Information's come out about those people.
Mother Teresa, all of them. They're
Yes,
involved
Mother
in
Teresa.
satanic cults that are known to be trafficking, and part of the pedophilial, and it's not pedophilia, you know what I mean? They're pedivores. In here, they are a satanic cult, and everyone assumes, oh, they're only a few percent. No, they're not.
No,
I have met people, I've met Rothschilds, I've met Rockefellers, I've met someone, at least in the 13 Illuminati bloodlines. But do remember, we had the 13 original bloodlines here. They've just copied everything. So I have one of the original noble bloodlines. And you trace it through the mother of the mother of the mother. They switched everything into a patriarchal system. And in the matriarchs appointed males. It's not that they ran everything. They didn't. They were just the brains behind everything, so to speak. But no, they appointed the males. And that's the only time in history you've had male and female councils all together. And that's why they had peace, because you had peace between the men and women in the councils to start with. And they would always appoint the chiefs or the dragons or the pindars, or call it whatever you want. But when you go into something that's convoluted or through religion, they control people through religion, through books, through media, through advertising. I mean, no wonder people, in this case with this boy, where's the people? I had to wait. The RCMP held back information. And when it did go out, some of the parents found out through the media. I mean, there was a child that was actually given CPR by one of the women for 45 minutes, this is those are the people in there, but we have to go back to what's happening to the children, right? These people that you see as figureheads, like the Trumps, the Carneys, the whoever, the Macrons, the princes, it doesn't matter what the monarchy, they are the ones that are being shoved down everyone's throat. That's why I don't watch mainstream media. I have enough stuff coming on my Twitter and Telegram like you do, and Facebook, and we all talk about it because it is affecting people. It's a massive psychological psionic operation, and it needs to stop. And the only way I can do that is to remove myself as much as I can. That's why I don't live in the cities anymore. I went in there for a week and just kind of went like this. So I'm not used to, I have towers here and we're still getting zapped like anyone else, but I'm going to a place where there's no 5G. I'm moving half an hour away from a tower because it's bad enough. And people don't realize it's not, you get more towers in the city, but you're still within that 25 miles transmitting. And I love Mark Steele and people like that, that are putting this out, Tony Pantalleresco, Sabrina Wallace, all the other people that are actually, I don't have to like what they do, how they dress or whatever, there's a resonance for everyone. But, when you start talking about hard, cold data and facts, that's what you said. Did anyone go read the label? I did. I know what, these drugs do. First thing I do is I know they're all wrong because they're all pharmaceutical based. They're all.
But you're an exception, Karen, with your experience and knowledge. The average woman down the road, she would have no idea what.
You have to be responsible, though. You know where all the problem starts with all my clients? One room. It's usually the kitchen. So that's why I do everything on Zoom and I go look in their kitchen. Open your fridge, open your cupboards, and I can see by a label. You may have slightly different labels over there, they're Ireland or across the pound that we do here, but for the most part, they're pretty similar. It might be just a, label change or a supplier change, but it starts in the kitchen and it ends up in the bathroom. And those are the two things. And how you process it will be in the bedroom. So for me, what you're feeding yourself, and that could be like, what are we looking at during the day, on that. And I should apologize because I brought my glasses out, my amber glasses to filter this, but I left them on the fridge. But
Do you need them?
no, it's,
Okay.
but normally I can feel it. They are targeting each one of us that are out there on the air doing these shows to educate people at our own peril, right?
Mm.
I have been actually shot, and I've actually shown it that I actually put a helmet, not a helmet, little toque, silver lined, right? So it would be like an EMF fabric. So all my stuff behind here is 5G proof. I've got aluminum mesh. I started the smart meter. I locked everything down. I keep, whether it's Faraday, I probably have $250,000 worth of tech in this place. Never know it in a little tiny house, but it's around the periphery. So even shungite around the periphery. The only thing I keep on me is a little bit sometimes is triple band, like copper, because if you just do a copper bracelet, it will stagnate it. But if you use 3 strands in opposing twists with a different braid, it will actually negate it. So I'm here to basically like negate stuff and transmute it. And all I'm doing is when I'm reading someone's biofield, which is an extension of me, because I still do facial reading, I still do psychic, I still do medical intuitive, I can still do energy work. But my machines, I can do 70,000 things because I'm connected to that, which is connected to you. So I'm looking at your biofield. And like, as I'm explaining, you can do all the manual stuff you want. I mean, I love toys and crystals. Most people don't realize that chiropractors and actually physiotherapists and ENT doctors use these, right? They don't know, but I can't get there unless they just 528 is nice, but maybe you got a certain bug at 528.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. There's a million things between 528 and 529, let alone going into a different spectrum. So it's like going into the, fifth dimension. That's a big dimension to go into. So I need to have sound generators which work better. But I know if that's a long way of what do I think of these people, because I don't. I try not to. They're not in my home. They're not affecting me directly, but they are affecting all of us. Those are some of the biggest influencers to do with wealth and lack of dispersal of wealth. But I mean, look at all the people that actually have fallen into there's Q, which is different. That's like top secret above top secret. That's a military thing. Unknowns is a different thing, but people confuse them. And then you get the Jacera Nacera. I've had more people have basically heart attacks. A lot of my friends are like, they literally believe this is going to happen. I said, I've known about this straw man and those trust accounts for probably 25, 30 years. I have yet to see it get paid out. I've seen lots of people not pay mortgages. I have lots of people who have done trust accounts and gone into the private and done all sorts of stuff and put their own flags in their own embassies and everything else up. And I also saw them lose all their companies, get seized by the IRS or here, like the CCRA, like Rev Canada. So yes, there is no tax law if you're First Nations. And if you're one of the Star Nations, well, no one should be paying anything anyway. It says voluntary compliance. But when you have people doing that, you're feeding into the system. I could never figure out, even up here, how they promote the doctors, even the doctors that are still providing every other like 99.9%, except maybe this new injection in the last 6 years, right? Or they're pushing the ivermectin. They're making money because a lot of them brought them in for private companies out of India or whatever else. And everyone that we tested is still full of the same stuff. I don't care where they get it from. And so those people are being promoted up here. And yet the natural paths aren't. And like in Canada, I'm not Canadian, but, because I know what it means. I've done a lot of stuff on sovereignty and I've put all this stuff out. I've been with the Winston Trouts and everyone else that's in jail. I'm quite well aware of, all this stuff. And, it doesn't matter the flag, the state national, everyone's got a kick at the cat, but they all seem to forget there was an original law here. And we have obelisks and we have stones and I've held copper plates and they all still exist. And they're all pre-flood. They're all pre-Tartarian. Most of these go back before the reset, And so when you're not aware of that, they can play with you quite a bit. So I don't know. I'm just totally disgusted by the way things are going. Hopefully, we've got other things that they're controlling too. When you bring in things like Atlas, you bring in the pole shift, you bring the volcano that's actually one of the worst ones right now. It's just brewing underneath outside of California and Oregon by Crescent City. But we've got 5 or 6 volcanoes that are starting to throw ashes out here. And then you've got nuclear plants next to it. So what else is going to happen? So this is where I
Yes.
think people need to be aware. I mean, even the Atlas, what they have done to people for mind control. And you got to remember everything that's up there, if they're up there, are affecting here corneal mass ejections. There are people behind the sun responsible for sending us that stuff and throwing the Schumann wave over 100 or 120 instead of 8. It discombobulates everyone. So that is done by people. It's not a natural event, just like the, solar eclipse. I'm really waiting till like August the 12th. I can't wait till the next solar eclipse, right? They're probably going to activate everyone. When they decide to throw that 5-6G switch, they're going to do 5G, then 6G, and 7G, because 6G is already in you. They just have to start throwing switches. They can do it individually. They don't have to do a town or run a tower. They can do it individually from the satellite now. So I think there's going to be some monumental things happening. The next 2, 3 solar eclipses or the next 3 days of darkness, however you want to look at it. There's some different ways, and
In a channeling the other day, when was it? Wednesday. The Pleiadians were saying that the next eclipse is going to be really important. So it's interesting that you've brought that up. But one of the questions I have for you, Karen, is so
mhm,
I've recently been watching a lot of the Epstein files and what's going on
yeah,
with that. And
yeah,
I've always known that the royal family is well, I haven't always known it, but when but I've come to understand and believe that the royal family are reptilian. So,
mhm,
and I remember years ago actually laughing about that because someone else I
yeah,
knew believed it. But and that was within the Buddhist center I was at. But anyway, I've come to believe that now myself, and
mhm,
especially through the channeling. Um, and I've recently seen the huge connection with Epstein and the royal family in the UK,
and Trump
and also in other countries.
and
Um,
Melania.
but I wanted to ask, so I've kind of been deducing that in my lifetime that the royal family will cease in the UK. I can't speak for others because I'm not sure, but definitely the UK. I think that's gonna I can see that ending, that whole monarchy. What do you think about that?
It's a construct. Like, I mean, I'll just tap on like the Game of
But do you
Thrones
think it
once.
will end in our lifetime?
I'm hoping so. I mean, I'm the one that put the original papers in internationally. They were sent from here. I went to
What
um,
papers?
I, as a clan mother, okay, I'm still one of the few. There's only a handful of us, if that, left on the planet, I think, from what I've been told from special forces, right? When I've
Are
gone
you in
out with them.
touch with the others?
No, actually, I'm not. We may
Okay.
be at a different level. Apparently, we go to meetings on and on. I don't know. I've had weird memories, and more people have had memories of me at these meetings than I have. So, no, if they're in there, you got to remember almost all the few that we had took the injection. And then what happens is when you take an injection, PCR, or you're on one of these drugs, they're graphinated. Let's say if they're even on insulin, like metformin, because they're almost all, this is rampant. Cancer and diabetes is just rampant, because they're not living traditionally anymore. They may speak some of the language, and maybe speak Cree or Sinaiacs or Shwetmak or whatever, the tongue Apache, Choctaw. They've all got a dialect, but they are. If everyone was Christian, right, and they read some books, where do your tribes come from, people? Right? And then almost all these tribes are offshoots of the tribes of Isis, Ra, and El. So it's not Israel, the country, it's a bloodline. And of course, you got everything infiltrated and hybridized. And most of what they're looking for are these even gray hybrids and stuff like that. That's what a lot of the ice and all these border things are. These are not necessarily humans, So when you go back to the royalty and what they're doing, okay, so in here, there's a huge controversy, especially as you think the Kamloops or Shwetmak. My mom delivered me at Kamloops, okay? I arrived by special appearance there in 1964, January 19th. The reason that's important is because apparently Queen Elizabeth came with a royal party and they decided to have hunting of little children and take them out. So
I saw that.
the
Yeah.
story goes in Kamloops, where again I arrived, and my cousin Sean Buckley, who's one of the top constitutional lawyers in Canada, worked out of. Okay. So in here, she apparently came 6 months later, and I was like about that big, but they moved me to Saskatoon. My Baba, who was, or grandfather was in the military as a vet or whatever, was in Saskatoon, and he was ill. So I was removed because all of a sudden a whole bunch of children, apparently according to William Coombs, that they went and had this party and then the children didn't come back. Now, so goes the story that Queen Elizabeth was there. Now, the big thing is they're going with all these missing women and children. I deal in truth, not in facts. Like a lawyer, they give you facts. Facts doesn't mean truth. It's an illusion. That's why every lawyer in here, the fact, my lord, or in every one of their law documents, the fact or it is understood or whatever, they have a trick language. Factum means it appears as. So just say it's bullshit. I'm going to feed you a story and see if you buy it. So the story that they gave to people is that 250 corpses and bodies are laid out in front of the school at this residential school in Kamloops. And of course, this is the whole thing for UNDRIP and give us our land back and blah, 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 blah. And they did. They've turned over parts of cities over to the First Nations. Not at all. They sent them over to the corporate tribes that are basically like any other city they're just a mini country. They're a country within a country, basically. And so what happened, I deal in truth. And so what happened is that in here, if you go back and you look at the records, which I did, in the 1920s, I think it was 27, 28, they dug it all up for septic fields. They even had like pools in some of these. I'm not saying people weren't injured, hurt, raped, and abused. And the whole Catholic thing is a whole thing. It's not a genocide. Gens is Roman. That's an RH negative. So if you said they're genociding, that means they're taking out their own bloodline. This is not. This is a tribal side. It's a clan side. It's a nation side. They're going for everything. So they can't even use the right terms when you're doing it. So this becomes a whole thing. And we've got actually like Francis Whittleson and a bunch of other people that were actually academics. They're asking one question. They got fired. They go, where are the bodies? So they were given like $12 million. So even the government, the crown, call it, here, we're going to give you $12 million to the band, which is like giving it from the fox to the hen house. And they want to what? They haven't dug it up. They've had all these years to dig it up. And the thing is, when you go over, they just want, with the kind of thing you get like jewelry, like a little Geiger counter. That's what they're saying. Well, there's some anomaly, so there must be a body. And I went, are you out of your mind? Show me a body. Go dig one up, get a bulldozer. You can actually just literally take soil samples. And even if there's no bones, there will be DNA residual. That's how we do carbon dating. We've been doing it since before the pyramids and, Royal Meath and Tyra and anything you can go check for DNA. That's not hard. And I mean, get us some really great LiDAR. They have earth penetrating direct energy weapons that put my entire thing here on fire. So, we still have trees standing, but the object wasn't the ground or the trees. It was the tunnel systems and the domes and the bunkers that are basically 10 kilometers for you people 5 miles down. That's where they start, level 1. And so they're all responsible for this. So this whole thing, so what I did, and I grew up in Saskatoon by the university. I went to the University of Saskatchewan. I saw Monsanto. I've met Mr. Monsanto, actually. I actually know what he looks like. I don't just bitch about him, but I know who he is. And we went in there, and that's where you did your injections, the Vito vaccine disease capital. Biolabs are on the University of Saskatchewan. There's a synchrotron there. We have a mini CERN, like Geneva crap. Like all sorts of stuff is there. And so the monarchy is one of the corporations responsible. And so this is a corporation that has been around, the crown and all this. Again, they came here, they did stuff, but we had like wampum belts, we had Noah's Ark, we had treaties, we had Cleopatra's things, Eye of Isis, and we had all sorts of things. Your Palladians had something called the Palladian of Troy, by the way, for a lot of Asia. So a lot of people don't even realize those are galactic treaties. Those are Star Nations treaties that are still intact to this day. So I got it in my mind. She's causing the problem. I have to get rid of her. Her pictures everywhere. And I was watching, I love David Icke. I got to meet him when I was on Vaccine Choice Canada. And I was like, yeah,
I love him too.
I do. And I said,
yeah,
I had all your books in my in my library. Everyone in Saskatoon, I had everything. I had like Len Horowitz's Angels Don't Play This Harp. But I knew that. I knew about the bloodline. I'd been studying stuff. I didn't buy the false narrative. Like I was studying, like, the Anunnaki and Ayn Rand and the Kama. I was reading all that when I was a little girl. I was reading Communion about ETs and Sasquatches when I was like a little, teenager. After Nancy Drew became into weird stuff. But, and now I'm coming back full circle after about 34 years. So the monarchy part here is a false. What we did, and I went there, I met with, and I can actually show you, there are copper plates. I actually have them on my Facebook on one of my things here. There are actually copper plates that were actually agreements with the monarchy. Okay. So don't think about papers. Don't talk to me about, treaties that you think the Versailles and all this and all sorts of weird stuff, is that people don't realize that there is actually stuff there. And one of the things I'll get into is that these copper plates were online. And basically I said I was going to arrest the queen, and I met it. And I did. Okay. Like even this has been sent to me by all the Six Nations hereditary chiefs. I'm not allowed to drop it, but I will show you. Choctaw Nation. So hereditary chiefs and hereditary clan mothers. I'm actually dealing with some of them right now. There's a couple matriarchs. That is actually an eagle feather sent to me by the chiefs.
That is beautiful.
Okay. So people can see the energy.
That's beautiful.
That represents all your Six Nations, is the original Constitution, the original lands before there was Canada and the States. And people don't know their own history. So when you start talking to me about 1776, that's when they basically came and killed most of these people. There's a few of us left. Doesn't matter if you're white, red. It's got nothing to do with the color of skin. You can be tribal and black. You can be Asian and black. You can be Tartarian or Arcturian or Russian, and in there. So what happens in there, and I'll just show you this really quickly, because that's what people don't get. They do not know the history, right? And we're still trying to dig it up. That's why I'm in front of one of the Hopi Mayan prophecy rocks and what you got at Tara. I have all the creation story sitting outside my front yard on the beach on all those rocks here at the lake. That's the only thing they didn't burn last year. But in here, most people don't know what is Canada. It's the Navigable Sea Waters Act, 12 miles outside in the water. It's got nothing to do with the land. And I would know. I was at some of these seminars, by the way. So people don't realize there are things still here that represent who we are. What is that AB blood? And that's just mine. I'm more, people can go check into their own stuff. What does it mean? You can go back into it where it is. These are before Sumerian stuff like that. And they're racist. There are over 60 bloodlines that I know of. 60 bloodlines. They only teach people, if you go to nursing, they're only going to talk about that. And then about null. But then you go into all these lists here, just on the far left, next to my Lusic coat of arms.
Let me just add, Karen, that I was reading something the other day, or I saw a video of it, where they're now saying that Rh negative blood is not possibly human at all.
Well, we've always known that. It's not new to me.
But it's not new, but it's
and I'm not a human either.
Releasing it.
Okay, there's terrarium blood and stuff like that. I use the word human. I mean sea monster, so I'm not a human either. You got to know what these things actually mean in law. And the thing is that when you start getting into the private, public, common law, maritime, military, all that, they're working in English or they work in Parsi syntax, which is just another form of English, right? Person means that. Well, body means this. Driver means this. Transport means this. They all have a different thing for it, right? And so basically, like, I'm a wild savage. That's technically what I am, a noble wild savage, right? And right, I'm not private, I'm not public, and I'm certainly not a person, and I'm not a human, and I'm not a body. But aside from that, the Rh negative, basically you have terrarian, and then I'm part of all those anyway. But I've got Gaia's blood. When you started hijacking and slicing the blood, non-terrarian, then you got not only these, and then you have another one called null. So there's only about 30 null or golden ones, which is they don't have anything, right? So you start going into these very important, and these bloodlines were actually all made on this. This is what's the really, let's close this out here, on here. These are just a hint of some of the other Rh negative ones here, right? Most people have never seen that. I don't know one doctor. I haven't talked to a doctor or a naturopath. And unless you're part of the blood bank and part of their cult that runs the blood banks, that's the only people I know that have talked to me, and they go, how do you know this stuff? Okay. Not only here, we got children missing, right? Monthly donors frozen for the council in Europe. Oh, surprise, surprise. Where do you think the children are trafficked to? I'm still trying to track some of this stuff down, right? You got to know some of this. It's not always what it appears. It's not always, and it took me years, like I'm trying to trust it. You are based on your genetics, your coat of arms. Okay. We have the original crown, by the way, forever, because we're original peoples, right? There's the McDonald's, the clan of Donald, right? You could go into all that, the tribe of Dan. You know, I've got tribe of Ephraim in me. I mean, I've done my genetics well,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
The McDonald's clan, Karen,
yep,
there's a huge history there.
massive,
Yeah.
massive. We have our own islands. I like them back. I like my castles. I like the gold. I like the silver. I actually want all of that. So when you get when you get the crown and the queen and everyone else and stuff like that that comes in here, right? And people know this. This is from Meredith Quinn Tribal Laws. So I always suggest people go there. I actually started putting some of this on a back playlist on my face stuff in here. When people go, where is it written? Well, go read an obelisk, people. I did. If I can decode medical stuff and read, the compendium of pharmaceuticals, what does it mean? Oh, guess what it means? Our stuff goes back to like Horus, goes back before the, different lands and the two lands. They've been playing with people's stuff forever, Like I said, very interesting. This is where the Cleopatra needle is. So, like, there's a lot of stuff like people just need to really open their eyes up. So I put some of these out here, and I actually put stuff you asked about it. I sent actually a bunch of documents that were hand delivered actually to Queen Elizabeth, the de facto queen. Here's my cousin Sean Buckley, by the way. Again, constitutional lawyers like him, they're not taught this. This isn't law. They're part of the bar. A lot of these lawyers are part of the problem, right? Unless you've been disbarred, right? There was a bunch of videos actually made about me. It was actually called The Future Shift. It was released in Calgary, but it actually talked about the clan mothers at the end days, that we were apparently time traveled back to help people and bring back those original laws, kind of like White Calf Buffalo Woman would come back and bring the treaties to those people and roll around with some buffaloes. But these are actually some of the different seals of the clan mother. These are time periods that go back to 340 BCE. And this was actually my proclamation that was hand delivered to Queen Elizabeth, by the way. And I was told 2 days after she got it, she took off to the States and was with Obama in Denver, Colorado. So again, there's a lot of things people don't know. They don't know their blood type. How can you inherit anything or take technically? I said, go watch Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter, even though she had the bloodline of the nobility, and again, look how corrupt they were. They were doing adrenochrome, but she was part of the House of Abraxas. And her genes came from those star nations. She was a representative from that particular star nation on Earth, Tara, Gaia, call it whatever you want. But she was the gene pool to be the original queens here, not the others that came in to remove her and all their minions. But she had to go there, and she had to went through a lot of stuff to say, hey, I have to put the claim in. You got to get all my genes, my genetics, my empty DNA. It's all got to be in the right sequence. Or she couldn't have gotten retitled the allodial title back. And she could clean toilets like I can clean toilets. It's who you are and whether you have the money, right? And so these are some of the documents that went to Queen Elizabeth, and that was the start of it. But I met with all the, what do you want to say? I met with the First Nations, a lot of them, like the West Coast. Okay. And I said, who wants to come with me and arrest the queen? So I went to my cousin's law office. I said, here, I'm no more. They had to, because it ended in 2012, 13, 14, these agreements with the monarchy. Well, at that point, it had been like a 2,500. You know how they say it's 2,500 per sessional, and they would come back and check? Well, I didn't want to renew the contract because I don't like them. I don't like drugs. I don't like pharmacy. I don't like what you did to my children. I don't like how you target anything. Actually, I think you're a bad example. You didn't come here in the two-row rampant and sit next to us and decide to, be friends. Even there was actually a crown. I don't know if you know, forget Nasera. Nasera should really be the first star nations to be a nation. And they came here and they were going to do a 60-40 split. They have never given any of the money, any of the gold, any of the silver back to those First Nations, because they were to pay rent to us. They are visitors that came from other races. And we know how that went, did we? So
Yes.
that's why I didn't renew it. So in council, when you have all the members or whatever there was left, I was the only one that was white. I'll tell you that one. They laughed. Anyway, we got a little white girl here. Right? Just probably, we're going to show you some stuff with your bear clan you probably haven't seen for since the last flood, dear. But I was there nonetheless. We had our eagle staffs out. We had the Star Nations Council there at Nescoith Band, just outside of Kamloops by Chase. And which of course it was all on fire too. You know, there's a reason why they're putting certain areas on fire here, because some of us are still here. And
And have you been in touch with Jennifer Berry Hill, who used to
no,
be okay?
no. I haven't.
She
So
used to help organize the star conferences.
I'm aware of the Star conferences. I
Okay,
know a lot of the Star conference speakers, but I actually have nothing to really do it with any of them. I
okay.
have nothing to do with the 13 grandmothers either. So they like to collect money and do things. But, like I said, a lot of these people are what we call Homo cyborg genesis. They're mutated and they're just considered basically a cyborg or a hyborg or assimilated or, transmutated, right? So that becomes a problem. So one of the things I will show you that I did in here, and if people want to get more into this down that rabbit hole, because this is where I went after the monarchy. I did. I was like, I'm not
But what
tolerating.
happened with that,
Well,
Karen?
I think that was the beginning of we had Tribal Earth Defense Force, and we had a lot of other ET and Star Nations come in that were on the fence. And like a lot of them, like I said, they have non-interference clauses, but then some of them are doing things for the right reason. And you know what? They're not thrilled with this planet right now. So under my Karen Ann McDonald, and like tonight in a couple hours at 5, I have usually on Fridays or so, I'll do a frequency Fridays, but I'm starting to get stuff back to things that I know. So healing, like Marcus Rothkrantz, how you do radiation. Like I said, it's transmutable if you know how to do it. It's actually a lot of what you eat. There's my frequency Fridays that cover everything like we're talking about. Then I go into what Genius and Neurovisor and all these cool things are. Again, they're just sound and light. They're not artificial. I don't know why people have got such an issue. You throw your light switch on and you talk to people on a cell phone, even if it's a landline. So I can make my devices into a landline version, basically. But what I have here, and then we got the weird stuff, but in here, there's a whole section.
And as I begin to travel around,
and this is actually from those Star Nation conferences you're talking about way back when. That is actually
Okay.
from the Star Nations in there. Okay, so what is the de facto laws? And then why Canada states or why in Ireland or whatever? Okay, what was Ireland part of? The 3 kings, right? The kingdoms, right? And the 6 kings and all that. But it was Ireland, Scotland, and England, right?
Wales?
But England and stuff. But when you get on like the whole those flags, when you start looking at them, they all mean something. It goes back to those 3 things. You have to go back
Yes.
to the love flag. So then there was Winston Shrout and all this stuff as they keep going down and blah, blah, blah. And again, the law is being taught in there. It's just they don't have the right titles. So, but there's still some of these elders still talking about it. There's a great one called Tribal Laws here. Basically, law of the land. I don't care about the private. I don't care about private law. I don't care anything. I want the original law. I want the law of the land and natural, or as in nature, but the galactics is natural laws genetically. What is our nature's law, our genetics law? And I'm not responsible for adopting or abducting, Cree stuff or someone else's. I'm only responsible for maintaining my own, and that we had peace treaties between us because we weren't at war. One of the ones I did in here, and Meredith Quinn is very well known. As you can see, Grandfathers from the Pleiades is up there too. All the 7 sisters, all that stuff is in there. Snow White and 7 Dwarfs. Those tales are still there. But one of the ones that I did that I think is brilliant, and it's just simply, it was actually, I made this for myself because I was putting everything all together. One of the things is, what are the maps? That is land-based. And this actually tells you right there, in answer to your question, the guys were teaching how Her Majesty came over, developed the crown as a corporation, and then how they started doing these trust funds, which really would be your original Nasera, technically. And so people don't know this and how they divided things. And that was for the whole continent. So a lot of people, like, they don't know the law of the flags. I mean, here is some First Nations that are not really First Nations, right? They might be called that on a band or reserve, but they are partners with the Queen. They made these false flags. To me, this is a false flag event. That's what these are. I have a new definition for it. But they were given an actual seal, a medallion from them as her partner, basically partners in crime. That's why on a lot of bands and reserves, only certain bloodlines run these reserves. Most people on a reserve are poor because they're not part of the elite in that bloodline. So these are where you get actually people on the bands and reserves actually sacrificing their own kind. It's disgusting, actually. And it really ticks me off. But in here, I sent a letter and a proclamation, and it was hand delivered into the inner city of London to the general. And Paul liked it. I liked it. My, representative liked it because he came in from Cambridgeshire, Lucas, and it was hand delivered and accepted. And the military watched, apparently, Queen Elizabeth bug out. A lot of people, they're out here. You'll see the white tribes here, Eagle Eye Man. He's British. He's blonde. He's got blue eyes. He looks like a Nordic, but he knows law. Right? There's your different people here. This is the 2-woe wampum, 1 and 2-woe wampums. That is a treaty of, like, what you call a flag of peace. It was done and sewn in belts, right? I know people, they've contacted me. They're holding the real ones, right? Civiva, these, and some of these are RH negative. So we have different, galactic groups in here, right? We are all talking the same law. We just have a different version of it. And so I go through a lot of this. I was talking, actually, this is how people are going to probably have to go into underground. They've got bunkers. We have pit houses. This is how you're going to have to do your gardens, make walapinis and stuff like this. Eagle Clan. If you look at the Eagle Clan, Tom Walker, that's probably why I was time traveled. They took me somewhere on my little Time Walker Society thing, right? I have entire books here I'm showing people that are original laws that people don't have a clue of. Meeting people that are actually original First Nations. And basically in here, Meredith Quinn was the legal law advisor for the whole Dakota. What's Decote? You would know that. Palladian. Decote. Tagata, right? The Dakota and the Dakota were on the Andromeda Council. So were my representatives, right? So again, and Lester House. So these go back. So you have to go back. And I've been on the ground listening to a lot of these elders. These are people that are RH negative, that their stuff goes back to Atlantean. They have Atlantean bloodlines. Okay. And these people were taken under New York and bled in these underground dumps, by the way, and used for trafficking, sexual abuse, and ritual abuse. So I've spent a lot of time with these elders, learning a lot of it. And like even here, when they do something, the Queen and her representative and the RCMP and all these people and whoever want to come agree, it says, just by coming to us, they're violating that treaty, my Noah's Ark or Eye of Isis or Cleopatra Treaty. And basically it's rebellion, insurrection, sedition, conspiracy, overthrow, right? All those terms are illegal. And people really should read this because they don't know who they are. We know who we are.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's there's so much information there, Karen. I think we should just I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I know that you have a wealth of information. So where can people find more information from you with everything you've said tonight? Because you've talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. In here, this is obviously my YouTube channel that hasn't been taken down. I got 2 things against me. I only got 2 more to go. May lose it. I got a Rumble, so I try and move them off there. Actually, if you go to YouTube or go to Rumble, you just Google Karen Ann McDonald or Karen Ann Lusick McDonald or something. You will find I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours. I had my own radio stations, and we were talking about Alan James. I went, "Oh, you're talking to Alan James." I did Open Your Mind in Ireland like 10 years ago. All those sort of things. The other thing too is when I go onto, for example, Facebook. I have this Facebook. I have several of them actually. I've got natural nurses and a whole bunch of stuff, biofeedback ones, but there's Karen Ann McDonald, but the only way I can add you now, and right now, do you know Facebook has actually given me 6,000 people in the last month? They're actually recommended me. I don't know what I did to the AI thing, but Anyway, they tried to lock down here, but this is the one I can
Well,
add.
that's great.
Well, I was really, here. So here's my actual, I've got a little group, and it was really little, which I like because it's just whatever, but it has gone from 1,000 people to 7,200 in a couple weeks.
That's great.
Because the information I've been putting out or stuff in here. So if people want to do it, they're welcome to join.
Yeah.
And I do. I've got 2 questions to, because I don't need trolls and people in here, and people have got to be courteous. I don't want to have any foul language because you're just you say the wrong thing, you're gone. We don't have, I have zero tolerance because there's a lot of, as you know, our children, or there could be youth in here, and I don't need anything untoward to affect them. So if that kind of helps you, and then if people want to get a hold of me, I can, under this video, they can get a hold of me if they want one-to-one sessions for, looking at the biofield, or if you want to do energy, or a lot of times I do all the above, because, I've got that training in extensive, massive training in the natural arts, right? And that can be the art and the science. I think that's one of the few things is what we call integrative or complementary alternative medicine, right? So I have that advantage. And a lot of people are on meds and they want to wean off, or they have addictions, or they have pain, or, the simplest thing is there's a lot to be said for baking soda. Like, could get rid of most of the cancer for like $3 of baking soda, some frankincense, some clove, get a couple things and readjust the field. People just don't realize our immune system is here. And
let me just say something about baking soda and also bicarbonate of soda.
Yeah.
So when I was watching Amanda earlier about DMSO on Mark Atwood, she was saying that when she originally set up her company, they had stopped her from exporting bicarbonate of soda to, I think it was either Ireland or the UK. They just wouldn't allow it. They held it.
I would think, maybe it's her or the company they were doing, because you can get it anywhere. You can get it on any Amazon, like Bob's and stuff like that. One of the things I did, which I teach, there is a different things obviously between a synthetic, which is Arm & Hammer, and getting a natural version more like Bob's. But I've got clients all over the world and they get it. There's ways around everything. And I think one of the simplest things, and actually I teach that, okay, is that I haven't met an individual that can't access it or get it. I've had this stuff delivered. I've had, food delivered to people when they were starving around the world. It's amazing what you can do. But in here, I have a thing called Heal 101. Everything now, it's called My Basics. It's kind of like my kitchen sink. How to do a yoni steam. I could talk to a naturopath and an MD, and they don't know what I'm talking about half the time. I am a colon hydrotherapist. I can improvise like MacGyver anything. Kalima boards. If you don't want to get a steamer, I can show you how to make a quick sitz bath for 5 minutes instead of sitting like on our gold ones here. But people don't know what yoni pearls are. These are the original ways, not ivermectin, not fen. Women put in these herbs into balls and they put them in rectally or vaginally. And they did enemas, back to the Essene gospel of peace. I teach people there are different ways to do it, how to assess stuff. Like I said, this geoengineering all these are different diseases, including cancer, that they've misdone. Like I said, I can scan blood. We can either go to a live blood, but I can scan it because the hospital's not going to tell you. Just like MMS, these were stopped. But there's a whole thing on baking soda. I have a whole thing on baking soda lemon water, baking soda maple syrup water. You don't just go take it either. Most people take it in their coffee and they're nowhere close to what they need. I just looked after someone that was misdiagnosed. He had shingles and he fell down the thing. And I actually put him on the massage table. I gloved up because I never touched anyone without gloves. But because he was sort of clean, his shingles were gone the next day. His hip pain was gone the next day. And he was seeing better with his macular degeneration, just because I did about 6-8 therapies on him simultaneously in 2 hours. I don't just do a massage, you get everything. So all these things, these are different combined things. Even I have like 6 different forms of clean tobacco. I don't use nicotine patches because there are clean forms of it. There's me giving it to someone radiotically, but homeopathically. People just don't know. And, that's the same thing too. There's the baking soda. I was just going to bring that one up here. Right? So I don't know what she gave, when she gave. And I mean, a lot of it could be because of her company, could be something between Health Canada and that. So, like I said, right now, Canada's going to get knocked in their asses really hard because in April we have something, or I don't, but they do. If you think you're a Canadian and you want to follow the Canadian rules, Canada's bills 8 and 9 and 224 are coming into play this year. And basically, if you even say that you're doing health, you are healing, you use one of the 200 words wrong, they will shut them down. Right now, we have got people, like, I can't believe so many of our naturopaths went and took the injection so they could keep their clinics open. And now what they have is nothing. I just turned down a job actually this week. They asked if I wanted to do some stuff at a naturopath, healing center. I found out they all took the injection. I said, I don't even want to be near you, let alone them. Like, why would I? That doesn't make sense, but they did it. So these are where people can go just when you're talking about even alkalinity. The pH scale, I deal in volts. If you are alkaline, that means that your blood is up there at a certain thing. You need to be at minus 24 volts. The minute you start going there with the blood, or you go to 400 or cancer, or any of that, or whatever you think you have, we need to test it. And these are all things people can test at home. That's basically, I think, the easiest way to go, is learn those things. So whether it's DSMO, like I said, there's a lot of people, I've read a lot of things out there, and there's nothing wrong with any of this tech here. You are not going to add more 5G or negative, whatever. I mean, that was the old days. Now we've gone from like strapping everyone in, like in a cath lab or something, to we can run these things like Star Trek off of our things, because people tell me they're healthy. And I always go, bullshit. You can't see someone inside. You can't tell me an ostrich is healthy because I know otherwise. They've got the internet of body. They got the internet of things. They got the internet of animals. They've got digital conversions. And you're not looking at this stuff. That's how I look at people. You can even go to the thermoscan. But, simple things work, and people forget the simplistic. So that's one way they can check, or they have questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question when you're looking, when you really are. I don't mind people that are diligent, that, want to put the time in, in there. I meet with people all the time, or I've got free quanta caps they can try. I've got lots of stuff. They can listen to their own sulfidiotones and frequencies for a week, but they have to, email me at my clan mother 13 to get it, or they have to get it. I'm happy to give it. I will give anything out. And that you will always have those sulfidiotones and frequencies, those 15 different tones you can always play with your headphones or whatever you want at home if you get a hold,
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah.
So I think we should call it a day for now, but I'm very much looking to forward to doing more with you, as always. And
thank you.
So people can go and check out your Facebook and also your website.
So there's Twitter, Telegram, everything, and LinkedIn. I'm on all the professional things like you are too. I mean, I'm just about everywhere except WhatsApp. So gotta cut it.
Okay.
I'm not on WhatsApp. And like I said, a lot of the stuff I do for gift barter donations, right? So, I'm not here for hire. I do things also by donation. You got to talk to people one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
We find something that works for both of us. So
yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Karen. And
lovely.
I just actually, as I said that, I had this kind of image that lasted a split second of us actually meeting up together at some conference or talk or something. So anyway, here's to the future, guys, because it's a very positive one, and we are in an epic transformation on Earth. So here's to finding out more about health and about our history and about who we really are. We are cosmic beings, and I shall see you soon in the astral.
Placebo.
Yeah.
Element jaw, whatever. Okay.
Okay. Much love to you, Karen. And
as well.
I'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
Okay.